Captain Jake Morrison gripped the command chair as the Terran Defiance shuddered under alien fire. Red warning lights bathed the bridge in an ominous glow while his crew worked frantically at their stations. "Shields down to 30%, shouted Lieutenant Sarah Chen from the tactical station. "Hull breach on Deck 7, called out Ensign Rodriguez from damage control. Jake's jaw tightened. 3 months ago, he'd been a simple cargo hauler running supplies between Earth colonies. Now he commanded humanity's first interstellar warship, fighting for the survival of every human in the galaxy. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same species that every alien civilization called Deathworlders had become the galaxy's last hope. The view screen flickered, showing the massive Vorthan dreadnought that had been hunting them for 2 weeks. Its obsidian hull gleamed with weapon ports, each one capable of cracking a moon. Behind it, a fleet of smaller vessels spread across space like a metallic plague. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Vorthan flagship," reported Communications Officer Parks. "Put it through." The screen shifted to show General Kethera, the Vorthan military commander whose reputation for brutality was legendary even among his own kind. His insectoid features were twisted with what Jake had learned was the Vorthan equivalent of a sneer. "Captain Morrison," Kethera's voice came through the translator with a mechanical buzz. "You have led us on quite the chase. But this ends now. Surrender your vessel and your crew, and I will grant you the mercy of a quick death." Jake stood slowly, his 6-foot frame appearing small on the bridge but his presence commanding. "General, you seem to have forgotten something important." "And what is that, Deathworlder?" "We're humans. We don't surrender." Kethera's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "Your species' reputation for stubbornness is well documented. But stubbornness will not save you from superior numbers and firepower." "Maybe not," Jake said, a grim smile crossing his face. "But it'll give us one hell of a fight." The transmission cut, and Jake turned to his crew. These weren't professional soldiers, they were miners, engineers, colonists, and traders who had volunteered when Earth's government had put out the call. But they had something the galaxy's professional militaries seemed to lack: the will to fight against impossible odds. "All hands, this is the captain," Jake announced over the ship's comm system. "We're outnumbered 50 to 1. Our shields are failing, and our weapons are running low on charge. By any reasonable measure, we should surrender." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But we're not reasonable. We're human. And humans have a long history of doing impossible things when backed into a corner. Today, we're going to add another chapter to that history." The bridge crew exchanged glances, and Jake saw something spark in their eyes, not just determination, but hope. "Chen, transfer all available power to weapons. Rodriguez, I want you to reroute life support from non-essential areas to the shield generators. Parks, open a channel to the Galactic Council fleet." "Sir, the Council fleet is 3 days away at maximum warp," Parks replied. "I know. But they need to hear this." The communication array crackled to life, broadcasting on all frequencies. Jake knew that across the galaxy, representatives of dozens of species would be listening: the cat-like Felinians, the plant-based Verdani, the energy beings called the Luxari, and countless others. All of them had looked down on humanity as violent primitives from a death world. Today, they would learn what that really meant. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran vessel Defiance," he began. "We are currently engaged with the Vorthan Warfleet in the Kepler 442 system. We are outnumbered and outgunned, but we will not retreat. We will not surrender. We will hold this line until our last breath because that's what humans do." He paused, thinking of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, cities full of people who had never seen an alien but who had sent their children to the stars anyway. To any human listening to this transmission, remember that you come from a world that tried to kill you every day, and you survived. You are the children of survivors, the descendants of those who looked at impossible odds and said not today. That strength is in your blood, in your bones, in your very DNA. Use it. The transmission ended, and Jake settled back into his command chair. Around him, his crew worked with renewed purpose, their movements sharp and efficient. "Vorthan fleet is moving to attack formation," Chen reported. "Then let's give them something to remember," Jake said. All weapons, fire at will. The Defiance wasn't built for war. She was a heavy transport converted in the orbital shipyards above Mars, her cargo holds replaced with weapon systems and her civilian-grade shields upgraded with the best technology Earth could provide. Against the Vorthan fleet, she was a sparrow facing eagles. But sparrows could be surprisingly vicious when cornered. Jake watched the tactical display as the enemy ships closed in. The Vorthans were methodical, professional, they formed perfect attack formations, maintained optimal firing distances, and executed textbook maneuvers. It was exactly what Jake had expected from a species that had conquered 17 star systems in the past century. Incoming missiles, Chen announced. 43 bogies, impact in 60 seconds. Point defense systems online, Jake ordered. Rodriguez, I need more power to the guns. Already on it, sir. Rerouting power from the mess hall and crew quarters. The ship's defensive batteries opened fire, streams of superheated plasma reaching out to intercept the incoming ordnance. The Vorthan missiles were smart, equipped with adaptive guidance systems and hardened against electronic warfare. But they weren't expecting the chaos that followed. Chen, forget the targeting computers, Jake said suddenly. Switch to manual fire control. Sir? The hit probability will drop to. Trust me. Sarah Chen had been a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps before joining the Merchant Marine. Her hands moved over the manual controls with practiced ease, and Jake watched the tactical display as their hit rate actually improved. The Vorthan missiles were programmed to evade computer-controlled defensive fire, but human unpredictability was something they hadn't been designed for. Explosions blossomed in space as the point defense systems tore apart the incoming barrage. Not all of them, 17 missiles got through, slamming into the Defiance's shields with the force of nuclear weapons. The ship bucked and rolled, but her reinforced hull held. Shields down to 15%, Rodriguez reported. Return fire, Jake ordered. Target their lead destroyer. The Defiance's main guns were human-built particle accelerators, crude compared to the elegant energy weapons used by most galactic civilizations. But they packed a punch that surprised the Vorthan captain when the beams punched through his shields and carved deep gouges in his hull. How did the alien captain's transmission cut off as secondary explosions rippled across his ship? Humans don't build elegant weapons, Jake muttered. We build ones that work. The Vorthan fleet responded with overwhelming firepower. Dozens of ships opened fire simultaneously, their weapons lighting up space with deadly energy. Jake felt the deck plates vibrate under his feet as the Defiance took hit after hit. Sir, we can't take much more of this, Chen said, her voice tight with controlled fear. Jake looked at the tactical display. The enemy was closing in, trying to surround them. It was a classic tactic: trap the enemy ship and pummel it from all sides until it surrendered or was destroyed. Then we don't let them surround us, Jake said. Helm, set course directly for the Vorthan flagship. Full power to engines. Sir, that's suicide, the helmsman protested. No, that's human. The Defiance surged forward, her engines glowing white-hot as she accelerated toward the massive Vorthan dreadnought. The alien ships scrambled to adjust their formation, but Jake had caught them off guard. By the time they realized what he was doing, it was too late to stop him. All power to forward shields, Jake ordered. And prepare for ramming speed. The Vorthan flagship loomed ahead, its weapon ports glowing as it prepared to fire. Jake could see the bridge through the viewscreen, General Kethera standing at his command station, his insectoid features twisted with rage. You mad fool! Kethera's voice crackled over the comm. You'll destroy us both. That's the idea, Jake replied. At the last second, he pulled up, the Defiance skimming along the dreadnought's hull so close that her shields sparked against the alien ship's armor. The maneuver served two purposes: it prevented the other Vorthan ships from firing without hitting their flagship, and it brought the Defiance within point-blank range of the dreadnought's weapon systems. Fire everything, Jake ordered. The human ship's guns erupted in a continuous barrage, her crude but powerful weapons tearing into the Vorthan flagship's hull. Armor plating peeled away like flower petals, revealing the delicate systems beneath. The dreadnoug's return fire was sporadic and poorly aimed. The alien crew had never trained for this kind of close-quarters combat. Their main reactor is destabilizing, Chen reported with something like awe in her voice.
Sir, I think we're actually winning.
Jake allowed himself a moment of satisfaction, but it was short-lived.
The tactical display showed more Vorthan ships moving to intercept, and the Defiance was running low on power and ammunition. Incoming transmission from the Kepler research station, Parks announced.
Put it through. The view screen flickered, showing the worried face of Dr. Elena Vasquez, the head of the human research facility orbiting the system's fourth planet. Behind her, Jake could see other scientists and technicians working frantically at computer terminals.
Captain Morrison, we've been monitoring your battle, Dr. Vasquez said.
We're evacuating the station, but we need more time.
How much time?
6 hours to download the research data and get everyone to the escape pods. Jake looked at the tactical display. The Vorthan fleet was regrouping, and reinforcements were jumping in from hyperspace.
6 hours might as well be 6 years. Doctor, I need to know, is the research worth it? Dr. Vasquez hesitated, then nodded grimly. Captain, we've been studying the Vorthan expansion patterns. We think we know where they're going to strike next, and how to stop them. This data could save billions of lives. Then you'll have your 6 hours. Jake cut the transmission and turned to his crew.
They were exhausted, running on adrenaline and determination, but they didn't flinch when he explained the situation. We're going to hold this position against everything they throw at us, he said. I won't lie to you, the odds are not in our favor. But we're human, and humans have a long history of beating impossible odds.
Chief Engineer Rodriguez spoke up from the back of the bridge.
Sir, with respect, the odds aren't just against us.
They're laughing at us while doing a victory dance. Jake grinned. Then I guess we'll have to shut them up. What followed was 6 hours of hell.
The Vorthan fleet attacked in waves, their ships darting in to deliver devastating strikes before retreating to regroup. Jake fought them with everything he had: ramming attacks, point-blank gun runs, and maneuvers that would have been considered insane by any military academy in the galaxy.
But the Defiance was dying.
Her hull was scarred by energy weapons, her shields were down to emergency power, and half her crew was injured. Jake himself sported a gash across his forehead from a console explosion, the blood making him look even more fierce than usual.
Captain, we're down to 10% on all weapon systems, Chen reported.
And we're completely out of missiles.
Then we'll have to get creative, Jake said. Rodriguez, how much antimatter do we have left in the engine reserves? About 12 kilograms, sir. Why? Because we're going to turn it into the galaxy's biggest hand grenade.
The plan was simple in concept, insane in execution. They would eject the antimatter containment pods and detonate them manually, creating a massive explosion that would take out any Vorthan ship stupid enough to get close.
The problem was that someone had to stay behind to trigger the detonation. I'll do it, Jake said. Like hell you will, Chen replied, standing up from her station.
Sir, with respect, you're needed on the bridge.
I can handle the detonation sequence. Sarah. Captain, I'm a Marine. This is what we do.
Jake looked around the bridge and saw the same determination in every face. These people weren't just willing to die for their mission, they were eager to make their deaths count.
Belay that order, he said finally.
We're all going home together, or not at all. He turned to the communications station. Parks, patch me through to the Vorthan flagship.
General Kethera's image appeared on the screen, his insectoid features more pronounced than ever.
Behind him, Jake could see the damage that the Defiance had inflicted on the Dreadnought's bridge. Captain Morrison, Kethera said, his voice dripping with contempt.
Are you finally ready to surrender?
Actually, I wanted to ask you something, Jake replied.
Do you know what makes humans different from every other species in the galaxy? Your primitive aggression? Your refusal to accept rational terms? No. It's that we're too stupid to know when we're beaten.
Jake signaled to Rodriguez, who began the antimatter ejection sequence. The containment pod shot out of the Defiance's hull, invisible to the naked eye but clearly visible on the Vorthan sensors.
What are you doing? Kethera demanded. Winning, Jake said simply.
The antimatter pods detonated simultaneously, creating a chain reaction that tore through the Vorthan formation like a cosmic hurricane. Ships that had been closing in for the kill were vaporized instantly, while others were caught in the expanding shockwave and torn apart by gravitational forces. When the light faded, nearly half the Vorthan fleet was gone. "Impossible," Kethera whispered, staring at the tactical display. "No species would sacrifice their primary vessel for a tactical advantage."
"Then you don't know humans very well," Jake said.
"We've been doing impossible things since we first looked up at the stars." The Defiance had survived the blast, but just barely. Her engines were offline, her weapons were dead, and her hull was held together by emergency force fields and prayers. But she was still in one piece, and her crew was still alive. "Sir, incoming transmission from the research station," Parks announced. Dr. Vasquez appeared on the screen, her face flushed with excitement.
"Captain, we've got it. All the data has been downloaded and transmitted to Earth. The evacuation is complete."
Jake nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders.
"Good job, Doctor. Now get out of here before." Alarms began blaring across the bridge.
"Sir, massive hyperspace distortions detected," Chen reported.
"Something big is coming through."
The space around them began to ripple and twist as ships emerged from hyperspace. Jake felt his heart sink as he saw the familiar angular designs of Vorthan reinforcements, 3 more dreadnoughts and their escort fleets. "It seems your heroics have been for nothing," Kethera said, his confidence returning. "You have delayed the inevitable, but you cannot stop it."
Jake looked at the tactical display, doing the math in his head.
Even if the Defiance had been at full strength, they wouldn't have stood a chance against this armada. As it was, they were a sitting duck. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the comm system. "We've bought the research station the time they needed, and we've hurt the enemy more than they thought possible.
Whatever happens next, we can be proud of what we've accomplished." He paused, thinking of his crew, good people who had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not come home. "It's been an honor serving with you all."
The Vorthan reinforcements were moving into attack formation when space began to ripple again. Jake's heart leaped as he saw the familiar blue-white flashes of human hyperspace drives.
The cavalry was arriving.
But it wasn't the fleet he'd expected. "Sir, I'm reading 57 vessels emerging from hyperspace," Chen reported, her voice filled with disbelief.
"They're not military ships, they're civilian transports, mining vessels, cargo haulers."
Jake stared at the tactical display as the motley collection of human ships spread out across the system. There were bulk freighters from the outer colonies, mining ships from the asteroid belt, passenger liners from the core worlds, and even a few luxury yachts that looked like they'd been hastily converted for combat.
"Incoming transmission on all frequencies," Parks announced.
The viewscreen split into dozens of smaller windows, each showing a different human face. There was Captain Lisa Park of the freighter Iron Mountain, whose ship had been hauling grain to the Centauri colonies.
Commander Rick Santos of the mining vessel Deep Digger, still wearing his work coveralls.
Captain Jennifer Wu of the passenger liner Starlight Express, her elegant bridge looking absurdly out of place in a battle zone. "Captain Morrison," Captain Park said, speaking for the group. "We heard your transmission. Sorry we're late to the party."
Jake felt a lump forming in his throat. "Lisa, what are you doing here? This isn't your fight."
"The hell it isn't," Commander Santos replied.
"You said it yourself, we're human. And humans don't abandon their own."
"Besides," Captain Wu added with a grin, "you've been having all the fun. Time to share." Jake looked at the tactical display again. The odds were still against them, but not as impossibly as before.
More importantly, he could see something in the Vorthan formation: uncertainty.
They had come prepared to face one damaged human warship, not a fleet of civilian vessels that had no business being in a combat zone.
"All human vessels, this is Morrison," he announced. "We're going to coordinate our attack. These aren't military ships, but they're human ships, and that makes them dangerous." "What's the plan, Captain?" Captain Park asked. Jake studied the enemy formation, looking for weaknesses.
The Vorthan commanders were skilled, but they were also predictable.
They followed doctrine, maintained proper formations, and executed textbook maneuvers. Humans, on the other hand, were gloriously unpredictable. "We're going to do what humans do best," Jake said. "We're going to improvise." The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations to come, not as an example of proper tactics, but as a demonstration of what determination and creativity could accomplish against overwhelming odds. The human civilian fleet attacked in a swarm, their ships darting in and out of the Vorthan formation like angry wasps. They had no uniform weapons, no standard tactics, and no proper military training. What they had was ingenuity and a complete disregard for conventional warfare. Captain Park's freighter Iron Mountain was equipped with magnetic cargo manipulators designed to handle metal containers. She used them to grab Vorthan fighters and hurl them into each other, creating spectacular collisions that lit up the battle space. Commander Santos's mining ship Deep Digger carried industrial-grade cutting lasers meant for slicing through asteroids. He used them to carve up Vorthan hulls with surgical precision, targeting weapon systems and engine components. Captain Wu's passenger liner Starlight Express wasn't armed at all, but she was fast and maneuverable. She used her speed to dart between enemy ships, deploying her escape pods as impromptu guided missiles that exploded against Vorthan hulls. "This is madness," General Kethera transmitted to Jake. "Your people are using civilian equipment as weapons." "Welcome to human warfare," Jake replied. "We use whatever works." The Vorthan fleet tried to adapt, but they were fighting an enemy that refused to follow any rules. When they concentrated their fire on the larger ships, the smaller vessels would swarm them. When they tried to chase down the fast scouts, the heavy haulers would ram them from behind. And through it all, the Defiance coordinated the chaos, her crew providing tactical information and targeting data to the civilian fleet. "Sir, the Vorthan flagship is breaking formation," Jen reported. "General Kethera is making a run for the hyperspace jump point." Jake felt a cold anger settle in his chest. Throughout the battle, he had watched good people die, human crews who had volunteered for this fight knowing they might not survive. The fact that the Vorthan commander was trying to escape after ordering the deaths of so many was unacceptable. "All ships, this is Morrison," he transmitted. "The Vorthan flagship is attempting to retreat. We cannot allow that to happen." "Roger that, Captain," came the reply from dozens of human vessels. "We're with you." The human fleet converged on the fleeing dreadnought like a pack of wolves pursuing wounded prey. The Vorthan ship was fast and heavily armed, but it was also damaged from the earlier fighting. More importantly, it was alone. The other Vorthan vessels were scattered across the system, trying to deal with the swarming human ships. "Kethera," Jake transmitted on a direct channel. "This is your last chance to surrender." The Vorthan general's image appeared on the screen, his insectoid features twisted with rage. "I will not surrender to Deathworlders. My people have conquered 17 star systems. We will not be defeated by primitives." "Then you've just made a fatal mistake," Jake said quietly. "You underestimated humans." The dreadnought's weapons were still formidable, and had managed to destroy 2 of the pursuing human ships before they could close the distance. But the survivors pressed on, their smaller vessels dancing around the massive alien ship like fighters harassing a bomber. Jake watched the tactical display, calculating distances and timing. The Vorthan ship would reach the hyperspace jump point in 10 minutes. Once it escaped, General Kethera would return with even more reinforcements, and the slaughter would begin again. "Chen, do we have any weapons left?" "One forward torpedo tube is still operational, sir." "But we're out of torpedoes." Jake looked around the bridge, his mind racing. The Defiance was dying, her systems failing one by one. But she still had one weapon left, herself. "Rodriguez, how much structural integrity do we have left?" "Not much, sir. Maybe 10% above minimum safety margins." "And if we were to accelerate to ramming speed?" Rodriguez's face went pale. "Sir, the ship would hold together long enough to reach the target, but the impact would destroy both vessels." Jake nodded grimly. It was what he'd expected. "Parks, open a channel to all human vessels." When the communication array came online, Jake could see the faces of the civilian captains who had risked everything to answer his call.
They were tired, bloodied, but still determined.
"This is Captain Morrison," he said. "I'm going to ram the Vorthen flagship. I need all of you to get clear." "Like hell," Captain Park replied immediately. "We came here to fight, not to run."
"Lisa, this is a suicide mission."
"There's no point in."
"Captain," Commander Santos interrupted, "with respect, shut up.
We're human, remember? We don't abandon our own." Jake felt his throat tighten. These people had families, lives, futures that they were willing to sacrifice for a principle. It was humbling and terrifying at the same time.
"All right," he said finally.
"But we do this right. One coordinated attack, all ships targeting the same point on the flagship's hull. We punch through their armor and detonate their reactor core."
"Understood," Captain Wu said. "It's been an honor flying with you, Captain Morrison."
"The honor has been mine."
The human fleet formed up for the final attack run, their disparate vessels somehow managing to maintain formation despite their different capabilities. Jake watched them through the viewscreen: cargo haulers and mining ships, passenger liners and luxury yachts, all united by the simple fact that they were human. "Sir, the Vorthen flagship is charging weapons," Chen reported.
"They're going to try to stop us." "Then we'd better move fast," Jake replied. "All ships, maximum acceleration. Let's finish this."
The Defiance surged forward, her engines glowing white-hot as she led the charge toward the alien dreadnought. Around her, the civilian fleet matched her pace, their crews pushing their ships beyond safe limits. The Vorthen flagship opened fire, its weapons cutting through space like deadly lightning. 2 more human ships died in the first salvo, their hulls cracking open like eggshells. But the survivors pressed on, their return fire raking the dreadnought's hull.
30 seconds to impact, Chen announced. Jake gripped his command chair, watching the alien ship grow larger on the viewscreen.
He could see the individual weapon ports, the armor plating, the bridge where General Kethra waited for death.
15 seconds.
The dreadnought's point defense systems opened fire, streams of energy reaching out to swat the incoming human ships. More vessels died, their crews giving their lives to get their comrades that much closer to the target.
10 seconds.
Jake closed his eyes, thinking of Earth, blue skies and green fields, cities full of people who would never know the names of those who died to protect them.
It was enough. 5 seconds. The impact never came.
Jake opened his eyes to see space filled with new arrivals, sleek ships with elegant curves and crystalline hulls, their weapons glowing with contained starlight. The Galactic Council fleet had arrived. "All human vessels, this is Admiral Zephyria of the Luxury Third Fleet," came a voice like wind chimes.
"Please reduce speed and allow us to handle the Vorthen flagship."
Jake watched in awe as the Council ships engaged the dreadnought with weapons that turned matter into pure energy. The Vorthen ship, which had seemed so invincible moments before, was reduced to scrap metal in seconds. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered. The battle was over, but the real shock came in the days that followed. Jake had expected the Galactic Council to treat the human fleet as a minor footnote in their victory report. Instead, he found himself standing before the full Council assembly, representatives of 57 species listening to his account of the battle. "Captain Morrison," said Councillor Vexka, the Felinian representative, "your species has been part of the galactic community for less than a century. In that time, you have been involved in more conflicts than most species experience in a millennium." Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat.
"Counselor, humans didn't start any of those conflicts.
We were just trying to defend ourselves."
"That is precisely the point," replied Councillor Thornbark, speaking for the plant-based Verdani.
"Your species has faced aggression from the Kreelan Hive, the Zephyrian Empire, the Vorthen war machine, and a dozen other threats. Each time, you have not only survived but emerged stronger." "Your people call us Deathworlders," Jake said. "Most of the galaxy sees us as primitive barbarians." "Perhaps," said Admiral Zephyria, her crystalline form shimmering with inner light.
"But after witnessing your battle in the Kepler system, I think we have been looking at this backwards." She gestured to the holographic display showing the battle footage.
"You fought a fleet of professional soldiers with converted cargo ships. You held your position against impossible odds.
And when civilian vessels answered your call for help, they didn't hesitate to risk their lives for strangers. We do what we have to do, Jake replied simply.
No, said Counselor Vexka, leaning forward.
You do what you choose to do.
And that choice reveals something about your species that we have been too blind to see.
The chamber fell silent as the council members conferred among themselves in their various languages. Jake waited, unsure what to expect. Finally, Admiral Zephyria spoke for the group.
Captain Morrison, the Galactic Council has reached a decision. We are offering humanity full membership in the Council, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails.
Jake blinked in surprise.
Counselor, I appreciate the offer, but I'm just a cargo hauler.
I don't have the authority to.
You have the authority of someone who has proven himself under fire, Counselor Thornbark interrupted. Your species has shown that they are willing to sacrifice everything to protect others. That is not the mark of primitive barbarians, that is the mark of true civilization.
But our reputation, Jake protested.
Everyone calls us Deathworlders.
Yes, Admiral Zephyria said with something that might have been a smile. And perhaps that is exactly what the galaxy needs.
6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of the Terran Defiance II, watching as the newest additions to the Galactic Defense Fleet conducted training exercises. The sight still seemed surreal, human ships flying alongside Luxari energy cruisers, Felinian scouts, and Verdani bioships.
Captain, Lieutenant Chen called from the tactical station. We're receiving a distress call from the Andromeda sector. Krelin hive ships are attacking a civilian convoy.
Jake smiled grimly. The Krelin hive was one of the galaxy's most feared threats, a species of insectoid warriors who viewed all other life as either food or competition. They had been terrorizing the Outer Rim for decades, and the Council fleets had never been able to stop them.
Set course for the Andromeda sector, Jake ordered. Maximum warp.
Sir, the Krelin hive fleet consists of over 100 ships, Chen warned. Intelligence reports indicate they have at least 3 battleship-class vessels.
Then we'll need to be creative, Jake replied. Open a channel to the human fleet.
The viewscreen filled with familiar faces, Captain Park, now commanding the converted heavy cruiser Iron Mountain II, Commander Santos aboard the mining ship Deep Digger, and dozens of other human captains who had answered the call to defend the galaxy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jake announced, we have a job to do.
The Krelin hive is attacking civilians, and the Council fleets are too far away to respond.
That means it's up to us. What's the plan, Captain? Captain Park asked. Jake looked at the tactical display, studying the enemy formation.
The Krelin ships were powerful and numerous, but they were also predictable.
They relied on overwhelming force and intimidation to win their battles. We're going to do what humans do best, Jake said. We're going to show them that sometimes the crazy plan is the only one that works.
The Krelin hive fleet was a thing of nightmares, massive bioships that looked like they had been grown rather than built, their hulls covered in chitinous armor and weapon spines. They moved through space like a swarm of predatory insects, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. The civilian convoy they were attacking consisted of refugee ships from the outer colonies, families fleeing the expansion of the Vorthan war machine, ironically seeking safety in the very sector that was now under attack. Sir, the lead refugee ship is the Hope's Dawn, Parks reported. She's carrying 12,000 civilians, including 4,000 children.
Jake felt his jaw tighten. The Krelin hive had a particular fondness for young prey, considering them a delicacy. The thought of what would happen to those children if the convoy fell made his blood run cold. All ships, this is Morrison, he transmitted. We're going to hit the Krelin fleet hard and fast. Our job is to buy time for the civilians to escape.
Captain, Commander Santos called from the Deep Digger, I'm reading some kind of energy buildup from the Krelin flagship.
They're preparing to fire some kind of weapon. Jake studied the tactical display, watching as the massive bioship began to glow with an ominous light.
Intelligence reports had mentioned rumors of a new Krelin weapon, something they called the Life Drinker, but no one had ever seen it in action.
All refugee ships, this is the human fleet, Jake transmitted.
Initiate emergency jump to hyperspace immediately.
Do not wait for escort. Human fleet, this is Captain Torres of the Hope's Dawn, came the reply. Our hyperspace drive is damaged. We need at least 20 minutes to complete repairs. 20 minutes.
Jake looked at the tactical display, calculating odds and distances. The Krelin fleet would reach the convoy in 15 minutes. Even if the human fleet engaged them immediately, they wouldn't be able to hold them off for long.
Torres, you'll have your 20 minutes, Jake said. I guarantee it.
He switched to the fleet frequency. All ships, we're going to do something incredibly stupid. We're going to charge a Krelin fleet that outnumbers us 10 to 1, and we're going to hold them off until the civilians escape.
Sounds like a typical Tuesday, Captain Park replied with a grin. Jake couldn't help but smile.
These people had been through hell and back, and they were still ready to fight.
All right, people. Let's